It's no secret that 2023 was a bad year for this game. In particular, the last 2 to 3 months worth of updates, depending on who you ask, could be seen as some of the worst we've had back to back to back. However, why 2023 was bad for Marvel Future Fight could differ depending on who you ask. Now, in general, I would think that most players would say, there were no major reward bumps in 2023, and there were no major game mode changes aside from ABL in 2023. And I think those two things together, no new game modes, especially high tier game modes that push you and encourage you to build, and then no big reward buffs, those two things contribute to most people feeling dissatisfied with 2023 as a year of updates. As well, I think some people would point to the lack of impactful new characters. We did have Omega Red, we did have Kang, I believe, and we did also have like Man-Thing and Kahori, but really not very impactful, not feeling like they're really adding a lot to the game. But that also has to do with the fact that game modes aren't being reworked properly, so new characters don't feel like they have a home immediately. However, I want to make another argument. I want to bring up another point. Uniforms. Was last year the worst year for uniforms? In particular, non-seasonal, non-native tier 2 uniforms. Now, I know it's a very specific set of circumstances, so I'll repeat what I'm saying. I think that last year, and I'll sort of rephrase it. I think last year, all of the seasonal uniforms, or almost all of the seasonal uniforms, and all or almost all of the native tier 2 uniforms we got were amazing. But looking at the native tier 1 non-seasonal uniforms that we got last year, I'm kind of wondering how many good ones we really got. So I want you to think off the top of your head, what were the best reworks via uniforms of last year? Would you say Farmer Thanos? Oh, darn, that's seasonal. Maybe Cable? That's native tier 2. Perhaps Doctor Strange? Also native tier 2. Maybe PvP? Maybe Adam Warlock or Wolverine? Oh, those are also native tier 2. Oh, Luna got an awesome rework. Oh, right, that's a seasonal. Ghost Rider got a really good one. Also a seasonal. Rogue got an amazing, also a seasonal. You see what I'm getting at here? A lot of reworks. Most of the best reworks of last year, of 2023, were seasonal. And that's pretty cringe. And if they weren't seasonal, they were native tier 2. Odin got an amazing rework, but he's native tier 2. Now, there's nothing wrong with a native tier 2 hero getting a good rework. There's nothing wrong with a seasonal rework via like a seasonal uniform. But when you look at the power level of the characters, and when you look at who's getting what, and you see shit like Star-Lord, Hela, and you're like, wow, Loki, Doctor Strange. I mean, Doctor Strange, whatever. But, a lot of the uniforms this year, last year, 2023, that weren't very good, or just sort of, they're native tier 1. Now, there are some exceptions to this. There are some exceptions to this. I think the biggest exception to what I'm saying right now is Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel is an outstanding character, and I think it's no surprise that she's an MCU character. They try not to make the MCU characters weak. So I will not argue, and I'm not making this video to say that Captain Marvel's uniform is weak. I considered tier 4ing her, and I am still in the process of considering whether I want to tier 4 her. So I think she absolutely is a standout of 2023 as a non-seasonal native tier 1 uniform. I also think that Miles Morales is a big-time standout. Again, also an MCU project here, but I think both of these are fantastic, and they represent some of the most affordably strong characters in the game, especially if you can just take them to level 80 tier 3. To a lesser extent, I also think Sharon Rogers got a good rework last year. However, with Sharon Rogers, she's always been strong, so I wonder how much of it is the new uniform and the tweak that it got versus it just being, level 80 tier 4 and stuff. And the thing in particular about Sharon Rogers and Miles is they don't really have a lot of game modes in which to shine in, right? They don't really have a lot of game modes where they can shine. They ultimately struggle a little bit with that because the restrictions don't really ask for speed males heroes or blast female heroes. So those ones there sort of break the mold. I think to a lesser extent as well, Black Panther breaks the mold. He was a pretty good rework of last year. However, he still has some competition from Moon Knight because of the Team Up collection, which was kind of a stupid thing for them to do to Moon Knight. And then on the flip side, Dr. Octopus, I think he got one of the most interesting reworks we've ever seen, and in particular has one of the most interesting tier 4 abilities because it resets the cooldown on all his skills. I absolutely love this effect, and they've actually taken it away from characters like Doctor Strange and Luna. So seeing them add it back to a character is really refreshing, and I hope that they do this more often because it's really fun and it makes the character feel so different than everyone else to play. But he's also buffed and sort of pushed higher than his ceiling otherwise would be because he has access to the Team Up collection via the Sinister Six, right? So it's just kind of interesting. Like, yeah, Red Goblin was a good rework last year, but he's like tier 3 only, so it's not the same thing, right? We had some other good uniforms, but then we had a lot of stinkers like Sabretooth, Groot, Rocket, you know, MODOK. We had a lot of bad uniforms last year, Sister Grimm. And by and large, the majority of these bad uniforms, Spider-Man 2099, Miss Marvel, Spectrum, you know, the vast majority, you're talking like 90% of these uniforms that were bad last year are native tier 1 uniforms. So I did want to bring that to people's attention, and I wanted to see what you guys had to say about this because it sort of hit me, and I was like, damn, is this really the direction that the game's going in? Because, not to be too doom and gloom, but it is a question you do want to ask from time to time, and seeing how Marvel Future Fight has, I don't want to say ballooned, but sort of grown from one seasonal uniform or one seasonal, you know, event per year, which is just 2 uniforms, to now having 4, April Fool's, Summer, Halloween, and Winter. You start to see the potential for a pattern developing that is not good. If 2024 comes to a close and we look back with the same reaction as I'm having now, when we're saying like, man, most of the good uniforms this year were seasonal or native tier 2 or maybe native tier 3. Maybe we start seeing, you know, Null and Sentry and these guys get uniforms. But if that's the case, that's kind of cringe. Like, that's kind of lame, right? We want, of course, you want expensive characters to be good. So please don't take the, don't take my message as we want to make these other uniforms bad. I'm glad that Strife got a really good rework. I'm glad that these characters got really good buffs because they're expensive characters. And if you invest in them with real money or with tons of resources, you want to get your money's worth. At the same time, we need characters like Namor. Right, we need characters like Iron Man. We need these sort of more budget-friendly. Namor's probably not a good example side by side with Iron Man, but we need the Iron Mans, the Venoms, the Moon Knights, you know, the Captain Americas. We need these characters who are easy to farm and characters who can, you know, be strong. We need the Shadow Shells, etc. I mean, Shadow Shell technically did get a good rework in 2023. But it was a very lazy rework. They basically just tweaked her skills to do more damage, and there was the level 80 and the tier 4 that really did it for her. They did nothing for her rework-wise in the sense of actual new skills, new animations. They just shuffled her animations around. A couple of other characters that I guess got good reworks in last year. I mean, Spider-Gwen did get a really good rework. That's true. Again, it's another MCU project, so it's right there with Miles. It's sort of the same thing. Gamora did get a good rework, also MCU, but it was also overshadowed by Gwen and then later by Luna. I didn't touch on these earlier in the video because unlike some of the other examples I gave, like Captain Marvel, Sharon and Miles and Dr. Octopus, these characters here, although they got good reworks last year, they were all replaced. And they were actually all replaced by a seasonal uniform in Luna. So although I consider them good reworks, if you have like a string of good reworks for a class of character that is required for certain content, and then right at the end you just, you know, do a huge power creep on all of them with one seasonal, that sort of proves my point more than it disproves my point, right? Because the point I'm trying to make is it's possible that the devs are trying to funnel all the players, right, and funnel all of the power level, all of the really powerful characters into either seasonals or into native tier 2s, native tier 3s, highly expensive Crystal Wall, deluxe pack characters, this kind of thing. I hope that's not the case. It's a little bit disheartening when you see one Universal replacing another and they're both seasonal, but at the same time, we'll have to wait and see. We actually haven't had seasonal uniforms for that long, so it's possible that I'm overreacting or this is not a pattern just yet, and I'm sort of connecting the dots too early. I say let's see how 2024 pans out, and then we can look back and see whether this sort of idea slash suspicion really pans out. But yeah, hit me up in the comments down below. Let me know what you think. Did 2023 live up to your expectations rework-wise for uniforms, or did you feel the same way, that most of the best reworks were being funneled to expensive or borderline paywall characters? Thank you so much for watching. Smash the like button. Let me know what your thoughts are down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.